What up, Screen Fiends? I'm GB, and you're tuned in to Headz TV, Thrones Thursdays, where we like to discuss all the wonderful things going on in the world of Game of Thrones. Alright, so this week on Thrones Thursday, I'm going to give my general Season 7 predictions. So, not dealing with specific storylines, just with the overall arc of what I think Season 7 will be about, and what the major, the major through line will be throughout the season. Now, I'm sure most of you are already on this page with me, but Season 7, is going to be all about the war for the thrones. So I don't think we're gonna get very much White Walkers or very much stuff, actually dealing with the actual Great War. We'll get allusions to it. We'll hear certain parties that are concerned talk about it, but we won't get much of it, I don't think. Most of the stuff I think we're gonna get of White Walkers isn't gonna be battle stuff. It's gonna be mythology, either through Bran or some other means. Maybe through Sam's teachings, findings, or whatever at the Citadel. I don't know, but I don't think it's going to be action with the White Walkers we're going to get. Just like all the other seasons, it's with exception of 5 and 6, we got some White Walker action in 5 and 6, but not much of it, right? Because one thing I think that they're not only the show is doing well, but obviously George R.R. Martin is keeping their main villain, their huge bad, really close to the chest. It makes it scarier, and it makes the ending battle, whatever and whenever that may be, more intense. Because you're not used to seeing battles again and again and again with the same forces. So when you keep your villain card close to your chest and reveal it slowly, it has much more of an impact. Now, one of my huge complaints with the early seasons, it's funny I'm saying this, was not enough magic or monsters or White Walkers or whatever, right? But I get it now. I was not much younger then, it's 7 years younger, right? But I think as far in terms of how I view cinema and movies and TV show and how I even write when I write my own fiction, it's changed and I've become more grown up. And I understand better that there are certain moves that are the smartest to make. Even if in the short term, they don't seem like the smartest move. In the long term, they pay off. Like what they've done with the White Walkers, and I really enjoy it. So don't expect to see too much White Walker action this season. We will see White Walkers, but like I said, it'll be more in gathering their forces, marching to the wall, and I think mythology through either Bran or Sam or both. Okay, so the Game of Thrones is what we're going to be dealing with this season. Right? So, who are the major players involved in the throne? Who's basically has their own army? Who's not necessarily warring for the throne, but who has their own force in this war, right? So you have Dany, obviously, who wants the throne. She covets the throne. And I honestly think that Dany is going to be blind to the Great War because of her die-hard tunnel vision for the throne. I think that Dany and Davos and maybe even the Red Witch there, whatever her name is, I always forget the names on Game of Thrones. It took me so many years just to get the Starks and the Lannisters together, but I believe that they're all gonna try, maybe even Tyrion, because I think Tyrion can be reasoned with, are gonna try to explain to Dany that there are bigger matters at hand. And Dany may see that and may say, you're right, I get you, but I came here for this, and this needs to be done first. So Dany is going to be putting all of her energy, thought, effort, and forces towards the throne. Right. Then we have Cersei. who has the throne, will stop at nothing to keep the throne, couldn't care less about any White Walkers, magic, mystics, anything going on outside of the wall. That's how Cersei, to me, is what the majority of the residents of Westeros are going to be like in response to the White Walkers in the Great War. Until they see it, most of them are going to be blind to it. Most of them aren't going to care. They're only going to care about their day-to-day lives. It's a perfect metaphor for us today as a society. How we will be blind to the bigger, more important things and worry and complain and only care about what's going on in our small section of the world. And I think that's totally Cersei and most of her subjects, the people who serve her throughout Westeros. And not only the people who serve her, but the average Joe. You have to remember, even though this is like medieval times, even in medieval times, not everyone was a soldier. Not everyone was part of a war. Not everyone was part of an important family. The majority of the characters we deal with on Game of Thrones fall into those categories. But we forget that there is an everyman out there, you know? There is a million people in Westeros that are hot pie, you know, that are just like the average Joe. And those people are also going to be blind to it until they see it, I feel. Who knows, though? Maybe seeing dragons will start to make everyone snap out of it. But, like I said, the dragons will be attacking Westeros. So most of these people will look at them as the evil magic, not White Walkers. They're going to be concerned with dragons. So when you have Dany and Cersei, they're going to be so blind, purposefully blind to everything else outside of the wall because they just want the throne. And it's going to be obviously the downfall of Cersei, but maybe even eventually the downfall of Dany, because maybe she waits too long to join Jon and it ends up hurting the cause. I obviously believe that the White Walkers will be defeated, but everyone's not going to get a happy ending. That's not going to happen. We know that, right? All right. Next. Euron Greyjoy. Now, he wants the throne too, and he will take it if he has to. He has an army, a very big one by the looks of it, and they seem to be a formidable force. I think we'll definitely get battles on the high seas in this season. But Euron is also smart, knowing that it's easier to get closer to the throne by marriage. So I think he's going to attempt with Dany. He kind of already has, but I think that may even go a little bit further to attempt to get Dany to be his wife. That's not going to work. We all know that. And then I think he's going to approach Cersei. And I think she will make a pact with him. But obviously I don't think it's going to be all the way through. Or maybe there will be some treachery involved. Who knows? I'll get into the more specifics on each characters and their story arcs in later prediction videos. We're going to do one of these, at least one, every Thursday. Even after Game of Thrones starts. All right, and then we have Jon Snow, who doesn't really want the throne, but he does have a formidable force. He is basically the king of the North. He runs the whole North. He already is kind of the king. And not even kind of, he is the king in the eyes of the Northerners and the Wildlings now, right? So he has a formidable force, and he has a claim to the throne. So I'm definitely putting him in this, right? But Jon knows that the bigger threat is the White Walkers. So what may happen is, in order to get Dany to join his forces, he may have to fight the Game of Thrones first. But I don't see Jon and Davos doing that. I see them saying, really? You think the throne is more important than this? Screw you. We're going outside the wall, and we'll start trying to figure this out for ourselves. Something like that. Or maybe Dany agrees to it and says, well, I'm not going to join you until I take the throne. So here's some of my forces. Take your forces, or not some of my forces, just take, Jon's forces, and go out and start to prepare to defend the wall. That's the most likely scenario. So we will get some team-ups. I think Cersei will team up with Euron. Because she's not stupid. She knows she needs people in numbers. And when Euron comes to her and tells her about the dragons and Dany, because maybe Euron gets to her before Cersei sees it or hears it for herself. And I don't think Jaime and Euron are going to get along well at all. But Cersei is going to be the White Queen, the Cold Queen, the Ice Queen. And she's going to start acting like a mixture of Robert and a worse version of, of her son. Because when I say Robert, I think she's going to be taking, people into her bed any time or any way she pleases. And I don't think this is going to make Jaime happy either, because he's going to be one of these people, but I don't think he's going to be the only one that she takes into her bed. And that's going to start to tear them apart even more. Even though we already know Jaime's starting to back off of her, it's going to tear them apart even more. So that's how she's going to be acting like Robert. And then, of course, she's going to be acting like, her son, because he's crazy. He was crazy for a reason. I think it was in the Lannister blood to have a little bit of a screw loose. So, I think that's going to play a big part in it too. And then Dany and Jon, even if they don't join forces initially, which I don't think they will. I think Dany's going to be, like I said, a little blind, a little reluctant to do that. But they will join forces eventually, I think, to ultimately take out Cersei, the Lannister forces. And then finally we have Littlefinger, who is in it for himself, but I think he ultimately wants the throne. That's, I think, been his goal all along. And I think he's always been using manipulation to achieve it. Littlefinger is a different kind of character in Game of Thrones. Most of the characters on a large scale. Small scale, there's tons of conniving, backstabbing, personal moments, manipulation, right? Tons of it in Game of Thrones. But usually not on a large scale. The large scale usually has to deal with people that have armies, that are fighting, that are using magic, whatever. But Littlefinger has been manipulating things on a large scale. The entire series. Go back and watch. There are so many little subtleties to Littlefinger's character that totally give him away and give away his plot the whole time. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because you have to really watch and pay attention and rewatch to pick that stuff up. But it's been there all along. So his final manipulation, I think, is going to be manipulating Sansa and Jon and Cersei, all into separating and fighting amongst each other so that he can rise from the ashes as either Sansa's husband and the new king, or just the king himself. That's totally where I see Littlefinger going. So that's where I think this season is going to be focused on the large scale. There'll be tons of smaller stories and tons of other things going on that I will get to in other videos. Check back every Thursday. But for the most part, it's going to be about the Game of Thrones, and then Jon and Davos trying to get everybody to realize the Game of Thrones is the least of their worries. They need to worry about the Great War, but I don't think it's going to be effective. I do think at the very, very end, we'll probably get a White Walker battle scene, and it'll be like some sort of cliffhanger that everyone's going to be mad at. And then next season will be all about the Great War and the fallout of the Game of Thrones, because there will be some fallout, of course. So I'm really excited. I also think this season is going to be tying up loose ends, because remember, next season is even shorter. So there are a lot of loose threads hanging out there. And will all of them get tied up? No. Will all of them get tied up neatly in a nice little neat bow? No. Will all of them get tied up in an expected way that we all want to happen? Absolutely not. That's not the way the Game of Thrones works. But we will get closure to a lot of those storylines, even if it's in an unexpected or unwanted or unorthodox way. But this season should be exciting. Next season should also be very exciting. A lot of action, a lot of political intrigue, a lot of backstabbing, and a lot of alliances coming together and breaking apart at the same time. So that's it for this one. Sound off down below. Let me know what your predictions, ideas for what season 7 is going to be about on a broad scale. You can even talk about the smaller scales in this video if you want. Definitely comment on my video style, this video, anything at all. Critiques are always welcome and always wanted. Any critique is a good critique. And check back every Thursday for at least one Game of Thrones video. And that's going to be even after Season 7 is over and during Season 7, because I have a lot going on in this crazy head of mine, Game of Thrones related, that I'm going to get out there. So we got a whole new schedule on the channel. It'll be posted. We'll have a trailer and all that, letting you know everything soon. But if you're into it for Game of Thrones, definitely check back on Thursdays. Otherwise, check out the channel. Tons of other content. All right, thanks so much for watching. You guys have a fantastic day, and I will see you next time.